Tracking winter storm warnings and also winter weather advisories across the inland Northwest. Here are some of the snowfall amounts we may see. I'll have more on your forecast next.
A tribute to a longtime Idaho logger. Dozens of loggers and truck drivers turned out to help bring him to his final resting place.
Some federal workers will soon miss their second paycheck. Today, we caught up with some local unpaid TSA agents who are now turning to a local food bank for help.
Now that I don't have to pay for some food, I might have gas to get to work the next day.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
Good to have you with us. I'm Jane McCarthy. Snow slowly starting to come down across the region now. So far, it's been pretty mellow in the Spokane region, but we know more snow is coming.
Indeed. Tom Sherry in the Weather Center tonight, tracking it all for us. Tom?
Yeah, it looks like we've dodged the first bullet. We were worried that the snowfall would really hamper the commute home, but at 6 o'clock tonight, looks like the roadways are still in decent shape for the most traveled roads. When you take a look at this, we have a winter weather advisory in effect for the rest of tonight, overnight until 4 in the morning. The area is shaded in yellow, including Spokane. That's under the winter weather advisory. We could get a couple of inches of snow here locally. Winter storm warning in effect to the east of us and to the north of us. The valleys 3 to 7 inches of snow. The higher elevations, the mountains, could get up to a foot of snow. I kind of spell it out community by community. It looks like Sandpoint could get 8 to 12 inches of snow by the time this thing is done. We'll look for, as I said before, 2 to 3 here in Spokane, 4 to 6 possible in Coeur d'Alene. Not a big snow event as you look out towards Moses Lake and Wenatchee and Othello. Under an inch of snow expected in those locations. There's the snow on the Doppler radar, but see how we've got rain to the south in the lower Columbia Basin down around the Tri-Cities. Eventually our snowfall will change over to rain, and it may do that in the overnight hours as we look for a low of only 33. We'll look for rain and wind tomorrow. It's going to be a blustery day. Wind gusts 30 to 35 miles an hour. Again, could see rain by mid-morning and then dry weather in the afternoon as we shoot for a daytime high of 40. Checking out the weekend, we've got temperatures in the upper 30s, overnight lows in the 20s. Should be dry both Saturday and Sunday. I'll run the future tracker computer model for you coming up in just a few moments. I'll tell you when I think our snow will change over to rain and where that will happen. All coming up in a few minutes.
Thank you, Tom. We want to give you a closer look at the roads tonight.
Meteorologist Thomas Patrick out in the mobile storm tracker at this hour. And Thomas, how's it looking out there now?
Yeah, Mark and Jane, we headed out to Medical Lake because the areas just to the southwest of Spokane were getting snow a little bit earlier this afternoon. It is still coming down at a really good clip, and it is quite slippery outside. Check out some of the pavement conditions for yourself. There's barely anything. There's just all snow and a little bit of grooving with the tire tracks, but it's not clear pavement that we're driving on, especially those side streets and parking lots and really any kind of area that has very little traffic to go on. Well, those roads are entirely covered with snow. So as we're driving now back towards the interstate on 902, it is a slow go. Everyone's taking it cautiously. I know the speed limit's 55. We're only going about 30 on this road, which is probably a safe speed for the time being. But as that snow, which is this very wet, heavy, wet, slushy snow continues to come down, well, it's going to pile up quickly. It's going to cause the roads to become even more slippery as we head throughout the evening hours and especially during the rest of the evening commute here. So take it really easy, especially if roads look like this. Though when we were on I-90 about an hour ago, I-90 was faring just well because the more traffic there was, the more heat there was on the pavement, and really the more wet as opposed to icy those road conditions have been. So just take it easy either way, because even the major roads will continue to deteriorate in terms of the road conditions throughout the rest of the evening hours. Reporting live from Medical Lake in the mobile storm tracker, I'm meteorologist Thomas Patrick. Back to you.
Thank you, Thomas. In other news, a cougar came dangerously close to a Stevens County home this week. It happened Sunday morning in the Evans area just north of Kettle Falls. A person in the area tells wildlife officers that the cougar attacked their pet cat before charging at them.
The cougar was later tracked and killed. As KREM 2's Taylor Bino explains, recent weather could play a role in the animal's behavior.
The cougar was spotted in an area about 9 miles down this highway. Now, folks living in this area told me that it's not often they'll hear of cougars here, but interactions with other critters isn't out of the norm.
Just be vigilant. I mean, don't be foolish going and looking for them.
Words to keep in mind here. Jackie Howard lives in the small city of Marcus, south on Highway 25 of where this all happened. She's never seen a cougar herself, but has spotted evidence of the big cats.
Two springs, actually. There were tracks on the property that it had just wandered in and disappeared. Never heard it, never saw it.
Now, this particular incident happened early Sunday morning. Fish and Wildlife says around 6:30, a homeowner in the Evans area saw a cougar attacking their pet cat on their property. The resident got the cougar to stop. It charged them, but was then scared off. A houndsman from Spokane was then called up to track the cougar. The animal's tracks were easy to spot in the snow, and officers later found the critter and euthanized it.
When you live out in the country, you're going to have to expect wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife says while cougars are known to be in this part of Stevens County, it's not common to have them come this close to a home. A department spokesperson tells me that snow in higher elevations often pushes prey into lower elevations. The cougars then subsequently follow. Howard says there's been incidents in years past where coyotes have killed local pets.
And basically they're after small animals that are out, whether it be cat or dog.
Howard ultimately says she's not fearful of the situation, noting that cougars often tend to keep to themselves. It's just simply the price of doing business here.
When we live in this part of the country, you know that there's going to be wildlife around, so, why get excited about it?
In Stevens County, Tigler Vito, KREM 2 News.
In other news, the Washington State Patrol is relaunching a statewide effort tomorrow to find missing children. So WSP will soon display posters of missing children on semi-trailers traveling around the state.
It's in honor of a girl from Tacoma who went missing 20 years ago. Tika Lewis will be the first child featured by the Homeward Bound program. The program is partnering with a trucking company based out of Blaine, Washington.
Over the weekend, Spokane police arrested 2 men who they believe were involved in a drive-by shooting in North Spokane.
Those suspects made their first court appearance this afternoon. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley has more from the courthouse tonight.
Court documents say the victims living at the North Atlantic residence positively identified who they believe was the shooter and accomplice, and they were identified in court today as Andrew Buchanan and Christopher Piper. Now, Spokane police initially reported several hours after officers cleared the scene of the fight. They were called back at the residence for a reported drive-by shooting. However, court documents make it appear as though the fight and the shooting happened all at once. Now, I've reached out to Spokane police to clarify, but have not yet heard back. Court documents say Buchanan was with Piper when they went to the victim's home and that they all knew each other. The victims told police Buchanan was upset his sister had gone to jail after breaking the front window of the victim's home. They told investigators Buchanan threatened to kill them and saw him carrying what looked like a Glock pistol. He even told them he had a bunch of other guns in the car. The 2 men eventually went back to the car outside the home, and that's when the victims say they saw Buchanan point a gun at the house and shot at it 4 to 5 times. No one inside was injured. Both suspects appeared in court for charges including drive-by shooting and first-degree assault. Docs say Buchanan has a previous felony conviction for vehicular assault last February, along with other felony convictions for attempt to elude and felony hit and run. Now, a judge set Buchanan's bond today at $250,000, as well as setting Piper's bond at $100,000. We're reporting outside the Spokane County Courthouse. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Now to a touching tribute to a longtime Idaho logger. Look at this.
Wow.
Bob Ross of Idaho County passed away last week. Now this weekend, dozens of loggers and truck drivers, they all volunteered to drive their trucks during his funeral procession. So powerful. His son Joe called it a heck of a tribute. Ross worked as a logger for nearly his entire life. The only time he took a break from it was to serve in the Army. His son tells us he was one of the last of a dying breed. And another person we talked with called him a father figure to many in the community. Ross was 76 years old and clearly will be missed.
Now that I don't have to pay for some food, I might have gas to get to work the next day.
Well, this upcoming Friday will mark 2 missed paychecks for federal employees as the government shutdown continues. And for some of these workers, funds are starting to run thin.
Paying for food is something many of them never imagined they'd be concerned about. KREM 2's Shana Waltower caught up with local TSA agents who turned to a food bank to get dinner for their families.
Well, having a stable, full-time job is something that's supposed to help take some of the concern off of where your next meal is coming from. But for many federal employees, that question is still there every day as they're still working without pay. Well, today, many of them reached out to a local resource to help them find that relief.
This is good for us that are struggling a little bit.
On a typical day around noon, Anthony Scott will be leaving the airport after his TSA shift. Today he left work at that time, but not to head home. Instead, he came to a Second Harvest food bank to pick up food for his family.
I got the fruit in there for my kids and yogurts. Those are hard to come by because they like those and not really an essential.
Scott is one of many federal workers around the area who have missed a paycheck. He has 3 children and says since he stopped getting paid, things have been tight. But he's tried to shield the children from the situation. Today, he told them,
Dad has to go to the store, basically, get other stuff.
It's a part of the toll the shutdown is taking on these workers' families. Another TSA officer, Clark Lane, was also in line today.
Both my wife and I work for TSA, so both of us are working without a paycheck at this time.
Lane says with Friday approaching, he's concerned there will be another empty check coming in the mail.
What happens is mortgages are due the 1st of February, and that's what a lot of us are worried about, how we're going to come up with our rents or our mortgages when we haven't got a paycheck all month long.
But he says this food bank was a blessing in making one less bill he has to worry about.
Now that I don't have to pay for some food, I might have gas to get to work the next day, which is required of us.
Now, TSA workers weren't the only federal employees in line today. Workers from the Washington Department of Ecology were also there filling their carts with meals to prepare. In Spokane, Shayna Waltower, KREM 2 News.